talking too. I hope somebody's listening. Maybe not. My wife never does.
Welcome into One-on-One on OSU Student Radio KXEY and Suddenlink Channel 112. We are live from Studio 318 on the beautiful campus of Oklahoma State University. I'm joined by my co-host Logan Moser, as always, and the OSU insider Robert Allen. How are you today, Robert?
I just want to thank Logan for calling me this morning and reminding me what the dress of the day was. because otherwise I might have messed up more in white or orange, and we weren't striped. This is a black out here today. Well, kind of a black, gray, charcoal, black, gray out. No white, no orange. We're not striping Studio 318. We're coming at you with black, okay? All right.
So is that an innuendo to what the Cowboys are going to be wearing Saturday, or?
You know what? I do think they'll probably get away from the traditional orange and white. Yeah, I would. They've kind of been alternating. Justin and his equipment staff, Justin Williams, they do a great job of outfitting and putting the uniform packages together. And this seems to me like I could go all black against Tech.
Yeah.
And then ask them, call their equipment guy and say, by the way, we're wearing all black. Can you wear all white? I mean, that would look awesome, I think. I mean, but, nobody ever asked me about uniforms. So.
Well, they should, Robert.
No, I mean, I don't know.
Well, I do a show or help run a show after, the post game there at Triple Play, and that was the biggest criticism that Dion had of Oklahoma State was the uniform selection last weekend. And if that is his biggest criticism,
pretty good.
Okay, and Dion's a friend of mine. I mean, what was his criticism?
He thought it was too basic for such a national game. Seriously.
Okay, what were they striping the stadium?
Orange and white.
Okay, why wouldn't you wear? And you know what? I could have helped Dion prepare him mentally for what he saw. I cannot believe we're spending this much time on uniforms, folks. I'm sorry, but I could have prepared him when they came out in the orange. In the first game, I'm like, okay, the reason they're going to go white, orange, white for that striping game against Boise. And I thought offsetting Boise's look, I just thought that was a good, besides the fact it was 44-21 OSU in the end, that was a good-looking game. If you're flipping the channels looking for bright uniforms, you're going to stop on that one.
Yeah.
Okay, no more uniforms.
No more uniform talk?
No more uniform. No more.
So, Robert, I don't want you to fall out of your chair, but the Oklahoma State Cowboys won a game with defense and special teams. Seriously. The special teams had 2 blocked punts that led to 14 points. How big of a win was it over Boise State for not only the program here in Stillwater, but the Big 12 as a whole?
Well, I think it was a huge game. There were 2 huge games being played last week in the Big 12 Conference from a reputation, image standpoint. The one in Arlington, golly, man, some Big 12 team, please go win in Cowboys Stadium. They are 0-14. Now, you've had Baylor and Tech have staged games there against each other, and we all know even when those two play, somebody has to win, you think. But yeah, somebody win. And I thought TCU, I think last week, did I say it here too?
I know you said it on the radio.
I did say it on the radio. You heard it here first. TCU will beat Ohio State. You know what? I would still pick TCU in the replay. I just felt that good about it, but that didn't happen for the Big 12. Did TCU embarrass the Big 12? No. Ohio State's a good football team, and TCU was competitive. It was 2 good athletic teams. You could say the Texas USC game in Austin, but we talked about that before we went on the air. 2 teams that looked like they were playing in concrete boots. They're not very athletic. But the Oklahoma State game was important. First of all, Boise has commanded some really good respect, guys. Secondly, whether they're the best team in the group of 5 or the second best or the third or whatever, you don't want a team in your league being beaten by a group of 5 team. Now the Big 12 can, thanks to Oklahoma State, the Big 12 can, with the exception of Kansas, who lost to Nickel State. But look, they did win the next 2 games. The Big 12 has done what they need to keep their positive self-image. They can look themselves in the mirror and say, we're not that bad.
And certainly in Lubbock, that was another group of 5 team that certainly has had a lot of success, especially in the last decade.
You're
Houston.
Right.
That was another big win for the Big 12 Conference because that's probably not a game that a lot of people thought Texas Tech could win.
I think the one in Oklahoma State was a good win. I think the one in Texas at Lubbock was a good no loss. Because, if Houston wins that, and again, when you look at Texas Tech's perception right now is they're mid to lower level Big 12. which means they might be ripe for an upset like that. But hey, not really. The Big 12, top to bottom, gets a little bit stronger rating because of what Texas Tech did.
Yeah, so the other games around the Big 12, as you mentioned, TCU lost 40-28. Really had it right there for the taking.
Sure.
And like a 6-minute swing, it was over. OU went up to Ames, had some trouble putting Iowa State away, but eventually got it done 37-27. Like you said, USC has a quarterback that should still be in high school, so they went to Austin. It got beat pretty good, 37-14. Not Tom Herman, but Clay Helton did make it back to Los Angeles. He wasn't left in Austin like I thought might happen. And Kansas got a Power 5 win over Rutgers, 55-14.
It was a convincing win, too. Like,
hey,
they were favored by, what'd they end up being favored by, 3?
I think they were favored by 3.
55-14.
It was a crusher. I mean, I think my friend Doug Meacham is still up on top of the press box at Memorial Stadium, dancing and having a exciting time, celebrating just 2 wins in a row.
They might get 3. They're playing at Baylor this weekend.
Yeah,
so.
and you know what? Here's the other thing. That was not a tough or an embarrassing loss for the Big 12, the fact that Duke beat Baylor. But you know what? I think Baylor showed that they're still the one team or one of the 2 teams in the Big 12 that's still rotating quarterbacks, maybe the only, because I think Kansas State found theirs in the second half against UTSA. But I think Baylor, there's still a lot of uncertainty about Baylor. And, David Beatty's got his team feeling good at KU. They got to go in and play at Waco, but it's not a tremendously tough place to play. I'm not even sure it'll be full. Yeah. So that could be interesting. That could be a good win for Kansas.
So the games this week, before we get into, we have a ton to talk about with the performance over Boise State and then this game Saturday against Texas Tech, of course. But West Virginia didn't play Saturday against NC State, of course, canceled because of the hurricane. Does that give K-State an edge, or does that give West Virginia an edge this week?
Well, honestly, I think it gives West Virginia an edge because they were able to stay healthy. And even though they weren't playing, Dana Holgerson said they scrimmaged a bunch last week. And when I see that means they scrimmaged on the things that they're having trouble with, whether it's offensively or defensively. If you're going to scrimmage inside the season, if you get that rare open week or a week like this where your game was canceled early because of an impending hurricane, which you laugh, that happens almost every year now in college football. But now you can scrimmage, you can control it, and you can focus it on the things that you're weak on. So I would think that this probably helped West Virginia as much, even more than Kansas State getting a win over UTSA.
And TCU's going down to Austin. They're a 3-point favorite as of Monday. I haven't checked since then. What kind of game are you expecting in Memorial Stadium?
Just kind of like what I said to you. I mean, I think TCU is a lot more athletic, has a lot more team speed. I'm still, even with the win over USC, Sam Ehlinger didn't do anything to make me feel like, hey, he's the answer at quarterback. So, no, I expect, and I would think the Horned Frogs would be hungry because even though they lost to Ohio State, they still know the start to getting back to Arlington and playing for a Big 12 title starts with Texas. And, man, if you're a Horned Frog and can't get revved up to beat the Longhorns, it's kind of like here in Stillwater. You think OSU's had enough wins over Texas? You think the belly's full of Longhorn wins yet?
Never.
No. Cowboys would like to have another.
Yeah, certainly. And it'll be an interesting game in the Big 12, some other big games across the country. But we're going to dive into everything about the offense and defense, that wonderful special teams that I like to see. But we're going to take a break really quickly. But first, we want to thank one of our sponsors at Oklahoma Air National Guard. Contact Oklahoma Air National Guard at 800-GO-TO-ANG or visit their website at goang.com/OK for more information about 100% college tuition. We'll be right back on One-on-One Ocean Student Radio KXUY, Suddenlink Channel 112.
Determining your future by selecting a major can be difficult.
It's okay to be undecided.
Connect with the College of Arts and Sciences, where your options are endless.
Where you can uncover your passions and achieve your goals.
Express your creativity by exploring a career in the visual and performing arts.
Investigate new discoveries to make the world a better place with a career in science.
Advance knowledge, communicate progress, and contribute to a healthier planet with a career rooted in the social sciences.
Discover your career by looking at the world from different perspectives through the humanities.
Realize a better tomorrow through problem solving and mining data that can change lives.
Cash prepares you to succeed through internships, study abroad, student-guided research projects, and service activities.
With 109 majors, 52 minors, and 24 departments, the only thing missing is you. College of Arts and Sciences.
Connect.
Achieve. Succeed.
When you have a team of physicians and nurses that really truly care about their patients, that translates into patient care.
It's a small practice, it's a small town. Everybody really takes that time to put the patient first.
Everybody cares what's happening to me and that I'm making progress and I'm gaining my freedom back and my mobility back. This patient is saying thank you.
This spring, I invite you to shop in downtown Stillwater. Downtown Stillwater is home to locally owned shops, boutiques, eateries, and dependable professionals that you can trust. Find the perfect gift for your graduate, have a delicious meal with mom, or just stop in to enjoy great spring savings. By creating a demand for local goods and services, you can ensure a place for the local businesses that help give our community character and keep it unique. On behalf of Downtown Stillwater, thank you for shopping local.
Welcome back to One-on-One, OSU Student Radio, KXUY, Suddenlink Channel 112. We are joined by Robert Allen. As you see those big plays, Tylen Loss, who had a pretty big game, didn't get in the end zone, but he had a big game. Robert, break down this offense for me in there. Huge performance against Boise State.
I want to break down that drive there, and that was the very next play after Tylen's 43-yard catch is Justice Hill scoring on the 8-yard run. You guys ready for a little romanticism?
Let's go.
I mean, I'm one. You know what? If I really want to get fired up on my drive from Edmond to Stillwater in the morning, I will push up on the phone, Kenny Chesney, "Boys of Fall." I mean, that's kind of syrupy, isn't it? That's a pretty syrupy song.
Yeah.
You know, hey, toss it in the air. Yes, sir. We want the ball. You mess with one man, you got us all. I'm a hooker. I'm hooked on that stuff. I truly like that romantic part of football. Okay, that said, and we got a little quiz going. Get the guys involved here. Okay, I know where you are during games. Oh man. Anyway, he's in a studio, but he's paying attention. You were at the game.
I was not. I was in Studio 318, or not 318. I was in room 317 in this building, but we were watching.
Okay, you were watching. All right. I was in the stadium with a headset on the sidelines, so I don't hear, fortunately, because sometimes I don't want to hear what's being said by some of the fans that sit behind the bench. They can be rough.
Oh, yeah.
They can be rough. And this is behind the Oklahoma State bench. But there was just a feeling after John Hightower for Boise caught the Brett Rippon pass. And what a catch. I mean, give that kid from Boise credit. Dive. I mean, was that not a sweet play?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was a feeling of, okay, after a dead first quarter, no scoring, which around here doesn't happen very much, and Boise now takes the lead on a spectacular long touchdown. Okay, what have fans been wanting to see? The one thing they've been wanting to see from Cornelius that he really totally hasn't delivered on yet.
Going deep.
Completing a deep ball. Okay? You just saw the opposing quarterback do it to give Boise a 7-0 lead. I just had that sense coming out of the stands that not just Taylor, but the whole offense needed to answer there. Not to win the game, because I think they still would have won the game. Heck, if it all had been cranked up and started there, we see some numbers there, and, OSU offense. It could have been the special teams and the block punts that crank it up. Could have been a big play by Bundage or Brailford on defense. But I just sensed right there the fans needed to see the offense answer. So I was nervous for them. I was nervous for Taylor because I like the kid. I mean, golly. I mean, he's waited his turn. He sits there and says he loves OSU. Heck, even Cliff Kingsbury this week said he really loves OSU. I mean, so So I wanted to see something good happen. It doesn't always happen on cue. But they come out, and the first play, I think, was a 5-yard carry by Justice, which was better than what we'd seen for the most part of the last 2 weeks. Good start. Next play, Arlington Hambright blows his protection on the left side. Taylor has to scramble, and by all rights, should have been sacked, but he gets a 2-yard gain. So the next play is the first time they ran zone read keep in the game. He gets 8 yards, first down. Beautiful. Next play, throws a little short pass to J.D. King. And King, probably should have been tackled for a 1 or 2 yard gain, but he breaks a couple of tackles, gets 9 yards. Sets up 2nd and 1, which is a magical down. Offensive coordinators, what kind of down situation, do you like? 2nd and 1. Because, hey, we can get that first down anytime, but on 2nd and 1, we're going to go deep. So, why Boise wasn't backing up on the snap, I don't know, but they weren't. And Taylor, rolls out just a little bit. Tylan Wallace gets 3 yards open behind the guy and a 43-yard play. Was it the best deep ball I've ever seen Taylor throw? No. In fact, it was one, instead of the overthrow we've seen in some games, Tylan actually had to kind of slow down to catch it. But he catches it, guy trips him up, 8-yard line, and you saw that last play was the 8-yard touchdown run. Immediately, when they came to the sidelines, there was a sense in that stadium, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm making this up in my head. Maybe I'm crazy. I could be. What the heck? I've seen a lot of football games. But I sensed Taylor Cornelius, with that series, he became Oklahoma State's quarterback. I mean, he's been the quarterback. The team knows it. The coaches know it. But, at some point in time, the fans have to know it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's kind of where, that's a long, drawn-out deal, but I felt that's where he became the quarterback.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying there. I mean, last week we were asking questions about are we going to see Drew Brown, but none of those this week.
No, I don't think so. I mean, and nothing against Drew Brown. He works hard. He's a good kid. But you know what, Drew? Keep working, buddy. You're probably going to get that red shirt you never used at Hawaii or at Santa Monica Community College. And now you can use it in Stillwater, get a little extra, I don't know, graduate degree, whatever it is you're working on, and get another internship, Drew. You're going to be here a while.
I do want to ask you about Cornelius and Tylan Wallace. They played together on the second team last year. How much did that help them going into this season? Because it kind of seems like he's the number one receiver for Cornelius.
You know what? Tylan says a lot, and here's a good thing. I think there's several guys like that. Tylan and Taylor were on the second team, so they worked together a lot. Dylan Stoner is his roommate. Dylan was on the second team, too, last year when you had, I guess McCleskey was one of the, and then I'm trying to think. I guess Dylan played a lot with the first team, too, but they're roommates. So, and when they get into scramble mode, Dylan seems to have the guarantee on, or the advantage on knowing where he needs to be to catch Taylor's eye, because we've seen a lot of scramble plays where Dylan comes up big. So I think all the receivers feel like, there have been times when McCleskey got a lot of passes. Tyron had the Georgia, or not Georgia, but the Alabama South Alabama game. Hey, they're at FCS school. Come on, no, they're a group of 5. But anyway, I think Trayson might be, or not Trayson, but Tyron. We got so many T's in the receiver group. Tyron Johnson may be the one guy that feels like, I'd like to get a few more. And I also think Tyron's one of those receivers that I'd like to have some more, please.
Yeah. One reception is 35 yards on Saturday.
Yeah, he'd like some more than that. And he will. I mean, I don't think Taylor's locked in on anybody. I think he's an equal opportunity guy. So, whoever's open.
So Justice Hill had 15 carries, 123 yards for a touchdown. Another long run on 56 yards on Saturday. Kind of runs out of gas there at the end. But Taylor was second leading in rushes.
Well, they stepped out of bounds.
It should have been more.
Yeah.
He should have had some more yards on that.
Yeah.
It was close, but he was busy stiff-arming the soul out of number 14 for Boise State.
And I've seen plays like that where the referees or the officials and the replay officials just said, I don't know whether he stepped out or not. Let's just let it stand.
Yeah.
Should have let that one stand. It was a good run, but hey, take what you get.
So, like we talked about, Taylor was his run game and his ability to get those extra yards, scored twice on the ground by himself. How important was the run game? Because I'm so impressed with how the offensive line played. Not great in the first quarter,
Right.
but from where we were last week to where we are now, my confidence with them, I'm impressed.
Yeah, they were better, and even Coach Gundy gave them some compliments. Said particularly in the second half when they came around. You know what? And let's remember, one of the best blocks of the day wasn't made ahead of the runner. It was made on the runner. Tevin Jenkins is back there, and he is literally pushing Taylor Cornelius, driving him into the end zone. And I was watching that on the field. I'm saying, Tevin, don't push too hard. Don't hurt Taylor now, please. You know, and that's the one thing Mike Gundy said, and I agree with him. He had 16 carries, guys. Now, some of those go down, the sacks go down as carries for rushing purposes. We don't want any of the sacks. But here's the deal. 16 carries, that's too many. Mike Gundy said half that. I could go for 5 or 6. 5 or 6 good carries by your quarterback can be enough attention getters toward the defense that it can change the way the defense plays you. And you could see in the second half, Boise alternated, but there was either a safety or a linebacker that was mirroring or spying on Taylor. Had him, and when you get a guy doing that, that's one defensive player that if the ball's in Justice Hill's hands or if you throw it, he's not involved. All he's doing is just making sure Taylor Cornelius doesn't run downfield. And that's a waste of a defender if Taylor does anything other than run.
Yeah, I mean, they did what they had to do to win on Saturday, and like you said, I don't think that's going – Gundy doesn't want that every week. But there's 3 other backs, Justice League, which you started, by the way. Second leading rusher.
Deion Amati, too. Let's give Deion a little credit, too. Former Cowboy, yeah.
But Taylor Cornelius was second in rushing on the team. As we said, J.D. King, as far as running backs goes, he had 5 carries, 41 yards. You would like to see more backs get involved. So Saturday, was there a particular reason it was just Justice and J.D.?
Just that, I think you had coaches that were nervous about the outcome and realized how important the game was. And coaches are human like the rest of us. I mean, if they feel the game's got any questions at all, they want your number one guys. Now, I know we haven't gone to defense yet, but the perfect example of the always have your best or what you think are your first teamers in there is Jim Knowles on defense. Man, he is liberally substituting because he thinks if he can keep everybody's legs fresh, that'll help. Man, you're seeing freshmen playing a lot of snaps on defense right now. So that's the but the offense, they still, and you notice they quit that offensive line rotation. They got 5 guys in there, and they're going to play, which is good.
Before we get out here, I do want to ask you, did you notice Gary Busey on the big screen during the game? Were you as terrified as everyone else is, at least on social media?
Do we have time for a funny story?
Yeah, quickly.
Okay, Gary Busey is a former OSU student.
Yeah.
And, of course, anybody, knows his roles. I mean, I like him in the Steven Seagal movies. But anyway, the one on the ship's really good. But we're out there at the Rose Bowl a few years back when OSU played UCLA out there. Donovan Woods was the quarterback that day, and I think OSU threw 4 passes but beat UCLA, grinding it out. Gary Busey's there on the sidelines. And so I told Dave Hunsaker, I said, let's get Gary on. So we're talking to him. Well, he gets into talking politics, which is a no-no. And I'm like, oh. And finally I said, Gary, we got to go back upstairs. Got a play to call here. So before he said anything that would have gotten me fired, we got away from him. But after that, he was having a party with the Palms. And I mean, hugging. And I mean, I'm like, this is getting on inappropriate. And then eventually a security guard came over and literally removed him from the OSU Palms. So that's my Gary Busey story. So scary, Gary can be scary. And on the scoreboard, he was a little bit scary. I like the Pete Zoom thing, too. That's good.
Whoever came up with that knew what they were doing.
Orange Power Studios, we're borrowing some of their video on the show here. They're good. They're doing a good job.
Well, that was a fun story. We're going to get back to talk about OSU defense, but first we want to thank another one of our sponsors at OSU Communications. You can count on OSU Communications for all of your game day tips. They know all things from game day, from the walk to tailgating. We'll be right back on One-on-One OSU Student Radio KXUY, Suddenlink Channel 112.
If you are wondering whether Gary Busey is really
In my mind, I was never going to walk right again. Before we were through, we had walked 23 steps. And that was my first steps of freedom. This patient is saying thank you.
Welcome back to One-on-One on OSU Student Radio KXUY, Suddenlink Channel 112. We are joined by Robert Allen. As every Wednesday, we're glad that you're here. Talking about Texas Tech, which we'll get to in a moment. But that defense on Saturday, Robert, they were flying all around. They kind of got gashed a little bit at first, but then Brett Rippon wasn't comfortable for the rest of the day after that first quarter.
No, you could tell after a while he was ready for the bus to start, and he was ready to climb on board and get to the airport and fly out. Man, even Jarek Bernard, the freshman, got a sack. I mean, all kinds of guys were getting back in the backfield, getting sacks. But here's the thing I took away from it. The biggest takeaway defensively is if you're looking for a defensive coordinator that acts like an offensive coordinator, and when I say that, offensive coordinators always get the reputation or the compliment of, man, he's got such a great imagination. That guy draws up crazy plays. I mean, isn't that the way OSU fans thought about Dana Holgorsen? Mm-hmm. Man, that guy's got his offense, man, I never know what's going to happen, you know. And defensive coordinators, when's the last time you heard somebody say, defensive coordinator's really creative? It just doesn't happen. I mean, but how could you not say that about Jim Knowles last Saturday? I mean, you see Jordan Brailford, a defensive end, playing two different linebacker positions, dropping back in coverage, you know, blitzing. You've got Calvin Bundage playing all over the place. And then I want to go back to what I said in the segment before. Colby Peel, who is a freshman out of A&M Consolidated, Jarek Bernard, who's a freshman out of Evangel Christian. Now, he was here in the spring. We see that fumble that wasn't a fumble that OSU didn't recover. Here's a block punt by the special teams. That's Jarek Bernard right there. That's involved in it. Amen. Agbonbamiga got it. I like the nice battle there. Philip Redwine Bryant says, hey, give me that football. But, yeah, the imagination of all the things they were doing. How many times, you know, most of the time people don't really notice line stunts. But OSU fans last week, because they were seeing all these new things, they were picking up, you know, tackle in twist. You know, hey, I got news for you. Missouri State ran tackle in twist about 50 times when they played OSU. But you don't pick it up because it doesn't impact the play. But when you see a tackle in twist and somebody comes completely free, like Darian Daniels or Cole Walter-Scheid or whoever, now you notice it. So, yeah, Jim Knowles is the bomb right now. I mean, that's an old saying, but I use it anyway. I'm old.
If you had to pick an MVP from last week on the defensive side of the ball, who is it?
Jim Knowles.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I mean, oh man, I think Calvin had 12 tackles and a bunch of tackles for loss, but Jordan Brailford had the sacks and 2 forced fumbles. Guy, you'd probably ideally in a perfect world split it, but I'll go with Brailford.
All right.
A guy we talked about last week a lot, Malcolm Rodriguez.
Yes.
11 tackles. He's all over the place. Everyone is on this defense.
Yeah, and the thing about Malcolm is he didn't have a very good game in the first game against Missouri State. I mean, he got beat on a pass play that he should have recognized and so forth. But the last 2 weeks, because he had a bunch of tackles against South Alabama, I mean, you're right. You're dead on with that. He is really coming on. And just think, I mean, he's got 2 more years, 2 more full seasons after this one. By the time he's done, a guy that very few people even thought about recruiting. Because when OSU got him, he had 1 offer. Wyoming. That was it. He had 2. Wyoming and NEO A&M Junior College had both offered.
So
those were his 2 offers. 1 Division I, 1 junior college. And Mike Gundy, who we all know wrestled in high school and still has an affinity for the sport, occasionally puts on a singlet, just for his own entertainment. He appreciates that. So, I mean, he was the one, I don't know if you guys have heard the story. Gundy went in the defensive staff room one day late in the season and said, "Can somebody please tell me why we have not offered this guy?" Well, all of a sudden, the defensive coaches all start bumping into each other, trying to go find some tape of Malcolm Rodriguez. And I think by the end of the day, Malcolm had an OSU offer, and by the end of the evening, OSU had a commitment. That's how quick it happened.
It's kind of crazy in today's world.
Oh, yeah.
But the OSU defense, 414 total yards allowed, 380 through the air. The running game never got going for Boise State.
And when you say that, it doesn't sound all that good, does it? 414, 380 passing yards. But here's the thing fans have to remember. Passing yards are fun to watch, but they are much less controlling. When you run the ball, and you can run the ball for however much you want, you control the football game. You can't necessarily control it by throwing it. And so that's why it's so critical that these running backs get some room and that OSU be able to run it. And you brought it up. The quarterback run game was kind of the ignition key to turning the engine over and getting things going. So, yeah, rushing yards are more important. Boise didn't have them.
Go ahead.
Okay. You mentioned last week your key to the game was going to be the front 7. How does Jim Knowles, you say he's an energetic guy and all that, how does he keep these guys on the secondary and in the front so focused for a complete game? Because we're not used to seeing that on both sides.
Well, I mean, once you teach a defense to play that way, I'm going to guess those guys are all hungry to do it again. I mean, and if you look at it, the first 3 games, I know nobody's going to really count Missouri State, but you allowed them, 18? The next week with South Alabama, would they have 14 or 13?
Yeah, 13.
13. So, even though those weren't big-time opponents, the defense did a pretty good job. You did what everybody is saying is an excellent job against Boise, who's really explosive. Hey, why not bring in Tech and shut them down? And here's the other cool thing about Tech wants to run the ball. This is not your mom and dad's Texas Tech with Mike Leach. If they can, they would like to run the football. In fact, they've run 281 plays, I think, this season. 131 have been run plays, 150 have been pass plays. Back in the day, Tech would throw twice for every run. So, it would have been, 50 to 200 or 75 to 200 as far as the breakdown of runs and passes for them. So they would like to run the football if you let them, and I think they'll find it's kind of hard to do against this group.
So Saturday, A.J. Green, the one pass that Brett Rippon made, I mean, there wasn't much better coverage that A.J. Green could have had. I mean, it just happened. The first time, he got left in the dust and he got burned pretty bad. But after that, he really bounced back. Is that an A.J. Green thing for him to bounce back so well, or is that just a part of this Jim Knowles coaching staff that's kind of brought that attitude to Oklahoma State?
You know, I get news for everybody. We're always learning. I'm still learning. Believe me, I learn lessons every day. I wish I'd learned 10, 15 years ago. AJ's still learning, and the lesson that I think AJ Green learned last week, in fact, I think his head coach kind of coached him up on it a little bit over on the sideline, is position's great, but position doesn't guarantee that the pass is going to be incomplete. He even had good position on, I think the one you're saying he got burned on was the first one that Hightower laid out. If you look, AJ's in the right position.
Yeah.
It's just Hightower said, you know what? This ball is about 5 yards ahead of us. And, you know, I realize you think you've got good position and you think you can stop this, but I'm going to dive and you can't stop me. And he dove and caught it. The other play, the guy made an incredible catch.
Yeah.
But AJ was in good position. He could have got his hand in there. He could have done a better job of trying to or he could have just simply, when the receiver made contact with the ball, knocked the crap out of it. You know, you do that, the ball will be incomplete. So it's called finishing, and I think you got a lecture on it. AJ's a good corner. Honestly, talent-wise, he's probably, and Rodarius might want to debate it. They're good friends. They kind of work together as a team. But AJ's really talented, and I'm pretty sure he learned a lesson last week that will come into play hopefully for the rest of the year.
You kind of mentioned earlier how we saw a lot of subbing out on the defensive side. Are we going to see that next week, or are they going to try and start saving some of these guys?
Yeah, I don't sense that they're going to change anything, guys, because I think it works, and I think as those guys play and make plays on their own, like Jarek did, and Colby Peel's been involved in a lot up front. Here's a name that, I mean, beginning of the year, probably hardly anybody knew who this guy was. Calvin Murray. He's a backup defensive tackle. I wasn't sure how much he'd help. Look at Calvin Murray's numbers. He's making plays. So the more guys you can get involved, the fresher you can keep your defensive players. And right now, I think Jim Knowles and the staff have a lot of confidence in these younger guys. And so, yeah, I think they're going to keep playing them.
So this Saturday, or last Saturday, they played a four-year starter at quarterback in Brett Rippon. Now they're playing a freshman at Texas Tech who's had a great couple games after filling in for an injured starter at the first game against Ole Miss. But I want to talk about the subbing that you talked about. Now it's Big 12. They're going to sub more, but football's a game of inches. It's a chess match. Mike Gundy won the chess match as far as subbing goes Saturday. The commentators didn't love it, but it's common sense
Second
football.
game in a row, are you talking about the...
Yeah, I mean, they forced Boise State into a couple delayed games, and they have every right to do so. It's a smart move. Of course, football fans can criticize it all they want, but at the end of the day, you're trying to win. So how is that subbing rule? Mike Gundy seems to understand it a lot better than most coaches in the country.
Well, I mean, I think everybody on the sidelines does. Everybody's looking at the play clock, and if an offense decides, and see the offense, they're doing that on purpose too. A lot of times, they're saying, okay, we want to get this sub package in. If we wait and do it late, maybe we can get it in. The defense won't get their subs in. And now we have a matchup issue. We have a matchup advantage. What OSU's doing, because they did, this is in the South Alabama, they subbed a defensive tackle for a defensive tackle. I mean, really? I mean, that's not going to give you any kind of advantage. And in fact, the guy they subbed in was slower than the guy they subbed out. But they did it because they knew, by rule, the officials have to give you that time to equal or to make your adjustment. And if it's late in the play clock, the only thing the offense can do is call timeout.
Yep.
And South Alabama chose not to, and Boise chose not to. So, again, some teams, you get that advantage because they don't sub. But at Oklahoma State, even if it's, Jim Knowles will look for the first guy next to him. Go in there for this. because he knows the play's never going to be run. Sometime you might see an offensive player come in. If he's the closest guy, get in there, because they're just trying to get that penalty.
Yeah. Very quickly, we just have a couple more seconds here. Is Zach Steiner going to play this week? Do you know?
You know what? I don't. Is he punting? Yes. Mike Gundy wasn't lying to everybody the other day at the news conference. He is punting. He has been working out 2 weeks now. So I don't know. The one thing too, though, is it was a hernia issue. I know that. I don't know if you guys have ever had a hernia.
Luckily not.
No.
Okay, good for you. I can tell you. I mean, I had two full knee replacements, and I can tell you the hernia surgery hurt more and took longer to get over. So if he's not full speed and where he can take a hit and it won't bother him, if I were Zach Steiner, I wouldn't want to be out there.
Well, we'll
They
certainly
do hit the punter on occasion.
Yeah.
They ask Boise State.
Exactly.
Well, we'll be right back. We do want to thank a couple of our sponsors at the table. Stop by the table on Thursdays at 8 p.m. to join their Bible study. Shoot Rachel an email at rachel@thetable.osu for more information. And Campbell Property Management. If you are looking for luxury living in Stillwater, please contact Campbell Property Management at 405-372-9225 or visit their website at campbellmgmt.com for more information. We'll be right back with Robert Allen on One-on-One, OSU Student Radio KXUY, Suddenlink, Channel 112.
Okay.
Welcome back to One-on-One on OSU Student Radio KXUY, Suddenlink Channel 112. I'm Reed Spencer, joined by my co-host Logan Mosher, as always, and the OSU insider Robert Allen, as he is loving seeing those special teams highlights. Special teams came up big. I do have some criticisms of the special teams.
Okay.
Every week.
Well, I mean, the punting wasn't great from Hockey, which Zach Steiner, if he gets healthy, that first punt wasn't good, but it didn't matter at the end because they got the 2 block punts, and the kickoffs weren't great. So there is some things that Oklahoma State can work on going this week, but you could say special teams probably on the game. But I want to start with some fast facts on this Texas Tech series, okay?
Okay.
The all-time series is 21-21-3. Oklahoma State Cowboys have won 9 straight meetings. The last time the Red Raiders beat Oklahoma State, Mike Leach was the coach, 2009. Do you remember the score?
It was in Lubbock.
56-20.
Yeah, it was ugly.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm total coming clean, total accountability. There was a missed extra point in that game. Not a missed extra point, a blown extra point, because the deep snapper had a bad snap that he dribbled back to the holder. I know that kid.
No. Oh, really? I
Yeah.
think I have.
Yeah, his name's Zach Allen. He's a relative.
He's doing pretty good for
He's
himself.
doing
though.
okay now as a junior college head coach. But yeah, that night was not one of his. That was one of his 2 bad snaps. The other one happened at Georgia. That wasn't good either.
We won't hold it against him.
Yeah.
We're proud of him.
Yeah, it's okay.
But they have averaged losing 19.4 points, Texas Tech has to Oklahoma State, and they've lost by a combined of 8 points the last 2 meetings. They haven't won in Stillwater since 2001, and Mike Gundy is 11-2 against Texas Tech. Those stats are favorable for the Cowboys.
Can you name Mike Gundy's first Big 12 Conference win as a head coach?
I know his first win was Montana State.
Yeah.
Was it Texas Tech?
It was Texas Tech. It was, I think, their only Big 12 win that year.
Things have changed.
And it was, and it was a 10th ranked Texas Tech team that came to Stillwater with Mike Leach. And, Mike Leach was not a happy camper on the flight home, I hear.
He had a rant after that game, right? Not a Mike Gundy-esque rant, but he kind of went off on the media.
I think that was the first of 2 times that he fired his defensive coordinator after playing Oklahoma State. And the second time was the day Mike Gundy had his rant. The defensive coordinator for Tech that day got fired on the way home.
Was that homecoming, by the way? That game?
I don't think so.
Because I remember a long time ago when I was really little, I came to a homecoming game against Texas Tech, but whenever it was, but we won that day as well.
Well, there have been a lot of wins here against Texas Tech.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you another thing too. I mean, from the fan standpoint, you don't think of it, as being a rivalry, but for Texas Tech, this is a rivalry. Mm-hmm. They're mad for a variety of reasons. One, they think Pistol Pete looks too much like Raider, whatever his name is, Yosemite Sam looking character. They think Oklahoma State stole, and I think we did, to be honest.
We do it better though.
Pistols firing versus guns up, and most of all, it's this win streak and how they feel like Oklahoma State has turned out to be the program they wanted to be. Mm-hmm. So now you have Texas Tech. I mean, Texas Tech looks up at Oklahoma State like, a lot of people think Oklahoma State should look up at OU or, Texas. Nobody looks up at Texas. Give me a break. Texas Tech doesn't look up at Texas. But think of this too. Tech's had much more success. Heck, they beat Texas last year to get to a bowl game. Mm-hmm. They've beaten OU. I want to say 3 times they've beaten OU since the last time they beat OSU. So Tech has really struggled with Oklahoma State, and they're kind of ticked off about it.
Well, that bowl win, or that win over Texas to send them to the bowl, might be the only reason that Cliff Kingsbury is still there.
Yeah, saved the job.
Saved his job.
Yeah.
So they're 2-1. They lost to they got blown out by Ole Miss in week 1.
Yeah.
They played Lamar 77-0, so that's against Lamar. And then last week against a Houston team who beat Arizona, I certainly thought that they would win that game. They beat Houston 63-49. Not a lot of defense. No. So I want to start with their defense because their offense is certainly a lot more to talk about. It's the linebackers with Dakota Allen. If you watch Netflix, you know who Dakota Allen is. He's a great player. He's made some mistakes, but he seems to be a really good person. So with their linebackers, I believe his name, Jordan Brooks, that's what it was. Right. I couldn't remember. So are their linebackers the stars of the defense in Lubbock?
Well, I think Dakota Allen is for sure. And I'll be, again, total transparency. I voted for Dakota Allen in the preseason ballot as the Defensive Player of the Year preseason in the Big 12. And I guess I'd change it now. Probably would change it maybe to Jordan Brailford or Calvin Bundage, but the way things are going. But I still think Dakota Allen's a terrific player. Again, I'll tell you a little bit of a story. David Gibbs, who was their defensive coordinator, is good friends with some of the members of the OSU staff, and he came over last year to the OSU sidelines before warm-up started, and he was telling some of his friends, because I'm eavesdropping, and he says, we're better defensively. I'm just telling you, and this was early in the year. Both teams played, this was the Big 12 opener a year ago in Lubbock. He said, we're better. You guys will win the game today, but you'll have to work hard for it. Lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. I mean, that game was close in Lubbock last year, a little too close for comfort. And they got a couple of turnovers, and Mason struggled a little bit throwing the ball, and it became a tough game. If you remember, I think Mason had the winning touchdown on a run.
Yeah, bootleg
around the right side. So after that, I started watching the Tech defense the rest of the year. I'm like, Gibbs may be on to something because, I always thought it would be tough to be the defensive coordinator at Texas Tech. There you see their defense. It's 10th in the Big 12. It's not good. It's not good at all. So I'm a little surprised, guys. I thought going into this season, Tech would be better defensively, and I thought they might struggle offensively. But look at this. They've lucked into two of their best offensive performers. I say lucked in, fallen in, however you want to put it. McLean Carter was their starting quarterback against Ole Miss in the opener. He got hurt. He gave them a little quarterback run game to go with the passing, a little bit like a Taylor Cornelius. And they end up with a freshman, Alex Bowman, from Grapevine, Texas, that's just – he threw for 605 last week.
Big 12 freshman record.
And who did he break? Whose record did he break? Was it –
It was Patrick Mahomes, wasn't it?
Patrick Mahomes, yeah.
Against
so
Baylor, I think.
Again, I mean, just crazy. Tashawn Henry, who you asked if he was going to play, had 120 some odd yards last week against Houston. He's got he's like the 10th leading rusher in the Big 12. I mean, he was not the starter. DeLeon Ward got hurt, had another player get hurt, and all of a sudden Henry's in there, and they find out, hey, this Henry guy's pretty good. So they literally fell into two of their best offensive performers.
And Antoine Wesley, he had 13 receptions, 261 yards, and 3 touchdowns last week. There's a lot of talent offensively in Lubbock, but I think
he was a starter at the start of the season.
yeah.
So although he didn't have the best catch, did you see that catch that Basher had in Ole Miss?
Yeah.
Oh golly, it's an all-timer. It's a great highlight play.
So the offensive line, they've got an experienced offensive line. With a freshman quarterback and a freshman running back who may start this week, we don't really know.
Right.
We'll have to wait till Saturday. How important is it to get pressure through that offensive line and make a freshman quarterback really nervous? Because you did it to a 4-year starter this last week. So you would think you could get in the mind of a freshman quarterback, or is Alan Bowman that good?
Well, I mean, you throw for 605 against a defense that has Ed Oliver on it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to dismiss that.
Yeah.
You got to give him credit. And again, against Lamar, he did what you're supposed to do. Here's the other thing too, and I always go by this, guys. This is the first thing I look at with a quarterback. Touchdown to interception ratio. Yards are great, but how many times did you get your team in the end zone, and how many times did you give the ball to the other team? And I believe the number's 0 for his interceptions, and I think he's thrown for 10 touchdowns.
Yeah.
You give me a 10-0 touchdown interception ratio, I will take that every day of the week, twice on Sunday and 3 times on Monday. I mean, it's good. It's good. So until he shows he's a freshman, let's just say Alan Bowman's playing much better than your average freshman.
So what do you think Jim Knowles is thinking, trying to bring that interception number maybe up a little bit higher so 10's not the ratio?
I love to turn this around. What do you think he's thinking? Based on what he did to Brett Rippon, a 4-year starter, what do you think he plans to do to Alan Bowman?
Much of the same, I'm hoping.
Oh, I think he's going to come after that kid like a scorned woman. Didn't they say something has no fury like a scorned? Yeah, well, Jim Knowles' defensive front too. Add that in.
So as a whole, they're not great defensively. What is Mike Yursich looking? He talked about what Jim Knowles is thinking. What's Yursich thinking?
Honestly, I think Yursich gets, I don't want to say conservative, but I think you go into this, let's just do what we do. If they're struggling defending other teams, our offense is better than a lot of other teams. Let's don't get cute. Let's don't try and reinvent a wheel here. Let's do what we do. And then if something happens and they're pretty good at defending what we do, then we'll do something, we'll throw something else in there. But I would come out with my base offense, run it down the field, and see how it works.
How many members of the Justice League are we going to see get more than 4 carries?
Oh, well, I think you definitely will get 2, and I hope Chuba gets in there this week. LD is still, I think he'll probably suit up, my guess would be. But, he had a little ankle thing, and I can't believe he had a 14-yard run and turned his ankle at the end of it. because it's a good run. It's maybe the best run in that game against South Alabama. So, but I think he'll be back. But I think you're probably just the 3.
Yeah.
And you can cut off some of Taylor Cornelius's carries
Yeah.
and hand them to JD and Chuba.
Are you going to expect more of like an air attack or kind of keeping it on the ground?
I think a balance. I mean, you look at Tech and what they've struggled with. I think they've given up passing yards, but they've given up running yards too. And here's the amazing thing: they struggled with Houston's tempo. I'm like, how does that happen for Texas Tech? Because when you play your own offense, they ought to be tempoing the heck out of you because that's what they do. But Tech, sometimes they weren't even lined up when Houston started to play. That to me is unforgivable.
So we just have a little over a minute here. Keys to the game and a prediction for the game.
Oh, wow. I mean, you like to throw keys to the game offense. I mean, I'm going to go with the simple thing. Do what you do. Do what you do. Key defensively, get in the face of Bowman. You know, make sure he knows, make sure he can tell what Jordan Brailford had for pregame meal. I mean, yeah, that he should be breathing hard on Bowman. And special teams, God, I'm trying to think. I've looked at a little bit of tape. Tech is, you know what? It'd be good to break a return. It's about time to break I'm going to say a kickoff return. That may be a place where Chuba gets to have a little bit of fun. And then scoring the game, I'm going to be conservative. I say 42-20. 42-20.
So you think the Cowboys ultimately just have enough to get past Texas Tech?
I think they have enough to control. And here's, again, I'm going to go back to the run yards. You know, Justice runs for over 100. Combine Taylor, Chuba, and JD, get them another 100 to 120. Run for over 200 yards, you can control the game.
Well, it'll be an interesting 6 o'clock kickoff in Boone Pickens, another night game.
That I like the 6 better than 7.
Yeah.
Don't ask me why there's a big difference. 6 better than 7.
Well, thank you so much, Robert, for coming in. You'll be next Wednesday. We will be live at 2:30 on Friday as well. We'll get out to Boone Pickens on Saturday. The Cowboys are kicking off Big 12 play. Thank you for watching One-on-One on OSU Student Radio KXUY, Suddenlink Channel 112. We will see you Friday.
Who goes on now?
It's okay to be undecided.
Connect with the College of Arts and Sciences, where your options are endless.
Where you can uncover your passions and achieve your goals.
Express your creativity by exploring a career in the visual and performing arts.
Investigate new discoveries to make the world a better place with a career in science.
Advance knowledge, communicate progress, and contribute to a healthier planet with a career rooted in the social sciences.
Discover your career by looking at the world from different perspectives through the humanities.
Realize a better tomorrow through problem solving and mining data that can change lives.
CAS prepares you to succeed through internships, study abroad, student-guided research projects, and service activities.
With 109 majors, 52 minors, and 24 departments, the only thing missing is you. College of Arts and Sciences.
Connect.
Achieve. Succeed.
When you have a team of physicians and nurses that really truly care about their patients, that translates into patient care.
It's a small practice, it's a small town. Everybody really takes that time to put the patient first.
Everybody cares what's happening to me and that I'm making progress and I'm gaining my freedom back and my mobility back. This patient is saying thank you.
This spring, I invite you to shop in downtown Stillwater. Downtown Stillwater is home to locally owned shops, boutiques, eateries, and dependable professionals that you can trust. Find the perfect gift for your graduate, have a delicious meal with mom, or just stop in to enjoy great spring savings. By creating a demand for local goods and services, you can ensure a place for the local businesses that help give our community character and keep it unique. On behalf of Downtown Stillwater, thank you for shopping local.